Sometimes you can't simultaneously be smart, brave, and careful. Sometimes you need to choose one. By following Josh to the door, Charlie's choosing bravery. I need to file a police report, not for the fictional murderer in this book, but for the crime that was this plot. The only reason why I'm making this video is because the brand that I'm working with for this one wanted to do it specifically for a roast or ranting type of video, which goes to show that I guess it's not just viewers that like these types of videos, but even brands too. So I looked through the backlog of a bunch of goofy books that I read. There is one from a couple years ago that I had always thought about making a video and I just never got around to it until now. And that is gonna be Survive the Night by Riley Sager. This is a thriller book that follows a college student who takes a car ride with a stranger because she needs a ride to her hometown in Ohio. And this takes place in 1991, so cell phones were not very common. Also, a fun little thing that's happening during this time is that there is an active serial killer that's been killing female students on campus, but she's like, you know, I really do need a ride, so I'm gonna go ahead and sign up for this ride share with a stranger. And lo and behold, throughout the car ride, she starts to suspect that maybe he is the killer. This is essentially a book about a girl boss who gaslights herself into a murder plot. The protagonist truly had one brain cell and it was on vacation. She left it behind when she got in that car. You'll see throughout this video, because I'm gonna break down the events that happened. I'll read out loud quotes so that you can get a taste of the writing and the very bad nonsensical decisions that are made just for plot convenience. But essentially during the 6-hour long car trip, you're gonna be yelling, "Girl, get out of the car." But she insists on putting herself in this dangerous situation because of feminism. And yes, this book was clearly written by a man, and this will be very obvious in a few minutes. Another quality about this book that we're gonna talk about is the overwriting, because the entire story is about the road trip. And I feel like because it is such a simple plot, I often felt like the author was over explaining everything as if to fill up the book and have it be appropriately novel length. Every single thought or gesture is described when it doesn't need to be. Every meandering thought that the main character has when she goes over hypothetical scenarios that never happened gets explained for the sake of boosting up word count. That's my theory, because otherwise, why is this writing so redundant? So buckle up, because we got another roast video where I poke fun at the characters and the writing. It's been a while since I've done this for a thriller book specifically, so now we can pretend that we are so scared in suspense. In fact, we're sweating from how scary it is, and we're probably gonna need deodorant to make sure that we're well put together. And that's why I'm glad to be partnering with Wild for today's video. Other than them really wanting me to entertain you guys, their mission is to also eliminate single-use plastic in everyday essentials. So that's why they have refillable deodorant, body wash, hand wash, lip balm. I primarily use them for their deodorant. I've worked with them before, so you've seen some other cute designs, but the latest one I got is this hot pink case. This time the scents that I got for my deodorants are from Chupa Chups. Right now I'm using the cola scent, literally right now, because I'm gonna be ranting and sweating during this video, and this deodorant will protect me. Best of all, they use natural products, which means that it is certified vegan and cruelty free. They don't use aluminum salts or parabens. So if you want to try them out, I have a link and promo code in my description, or scan the QR code that I'm gonna put in the corner. Use my code WithCindy to get 20% off of all products. So thanks to Wild for partnering with me as we start to discuss the very wild journey that our main character is about to embark with a possible serial killer. So to dive into this book, let me set up the scene for you. This is taking place in November of 1991. Our main character is Charlie, who is a college student in a university in New Jersey, and her best friend Maddie was murdered 2 months ago. So the moment that we meet Charlie, she is wrecked by guilt over Maddie's death, especially because she feels like she could have stopped Maddie from getting killed. Basically what happened was the night that they were together, aka the last night she saw Maddie, they were at a bar and they had an argument, and she basically told Maddie to F off. And so when she walked away, she saw Maddie, who was, you know, being left behind, was now being approached by a strange man. And she didn't think to stay behind and check to see if Maddie was okay, because, you know, she was pissed off at Maddie and she didn't want to deal with her friend at the time. And also, she wasn't very concerned about this strange man approaching Maddie from the shadows because she thought that this was probably a hallucination. Because fun fact, Charlie has a quirky little condition where movies will play in her mind. And this is because she loves movies. Like, she loves it so much that she will, for a moment, like, believe that the movie that she's seeing in her mind is her actual reality. Here's some textual evidence of how much of a film bro in a young hot girl's body of a character that she is. Charlie's talking too much, which only happens when the subject is movies. She could be mute for hours, but if someone mentions a film title, the words pour out. Maddie had once told her that movies were her version of wine coolers. They really loosen you up, she said. Charlie knows it's true, which is why asking people about their favorite movie is the only icebreaker she has. It instantly tells her how much time and energy she could spend on a person. If someone mentions Hitchcock or Ford or Altman or even Argento, they're probably worth talking to. On the flip side, if someone brings up the sound of music, Charlie knows it's best to just walk away. First of all, what the fuck is wrong with the sound of music? I'm not even a fan of the movie, but surely there are worse movies out there to judge someone on not being worth talking to. There's a conversation we see later on where someone asks her, is that your thing, movies? And she says, they're more than just my thing. Movies are my life and my major, film theory. And he says, like learning how to make them. And she says, studying them, learning how they tick, understanding what works and what doesn't, appreciating them. So she literally explains her condition as seeing movies in her mind. You might ask, oh, is it like a daydream or something? And she says, not quite. This is the opposite. Everything is sharper, like a movie projected onto the backs of her eyelids. It's not The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, starring Danny Kaye, Virginia Mayo, and Boris Karloff, she says, rattling off the names the same way of baseball fans recite player stats, loosely based on the short story by James Thurber. It's about this guy named Walter who has this elaborate fantasy life. What happens to me is ... different. Instead of what's really happening, I see a heightened version of the scene, like my brain is playing tricks on me. I hear conversations that aren't happening and see things that aren't really there. Hallucinations, that was what the psychiatrist called them. She said it was like having a mental circuit breaker, triggered when Charlie's emotions threatened to overwhelm her. In times of grief or stress or fear, a switch flips in Charlie's brain, replacing reality with something more cinematic and easier to handle. One of those emotions would have been enough to handle on her own. She might have even been able to deal with a combination of two of them, but put all three together and click, the switch in her brain was flipped and the movie in her mind began. Another character asked her, you said you see and hear things that might not be there. Are we talking people? And Charlie says, yes, sometimes people. Someone talks to me, I talk to them, and no one else can hear it because it's all in my head. This just happens without warning and she can't control it. Basically, what I'm trying to say is this condition that does not exist in real life, where she drifts off into imaginary movie land, is extremely convenient for the plot that we are about to embark here. This is another way we're gonna extend this road trip to be way longer than it needs to be by making up scenarios that don't even exist. Anyway, so on the night that Maddie got attacked and killed, Charlie was like, damn, I should log this on Letterboxd because this is a crazy ass movie. I'm just kidding. She didn't actually see Maddie get attacked, but you know, it was implied that something sketchy was gonna happen and Charlie just thought that it was another hallucination. The gag is, what made her think that it was a movie was that the guy that she saw follow Maddie was wearing a fedora. First of all, that should have been your red flag right there. Never mind the murderer part. But that fedora was basically like the key item that made her think, oh, this must be a noir movie because men in the modern day age don't wear fedoras. So, you know, I'm probably just being a crazy lady again. But unfortunately, the next day, Maddie never shows up and it turns out that she was murdered by a serial killer known as the Campus Killer, who has murdered 2 other female students in the past 4 years. And something about him, his little trademark, is that he takes 1 tooth from each of his victims. Like he's some motherfucking tooth fairy over here. So since then, Charlie has stopped going to class and she has now decided to drop out of school, which means that she now needs a ride home from school in the middle of the semester. She also doesn't drive because her parents were killed in a car accident. So she essentially needs somebody else to drive her. And this is where she posts a flyer on a rideshare board on campus. From that flyer, she meets the main guy named Josh. I do want to note that she has a boyfriend named Robbie who did offer to drive her over the weekend, but she just wants to leave ASAP. So she's fine with going with a stranger, even though there is an active serial killer right now on campus, one of which had recently just killed her friend 2 months ago. But sure, we're gonna go along with this. Also, another fun fact, she used to take pills to deal with like the hallucinations in her mind with the movies, but by the time the book starts, she has stopped taking them for 3 days. Gee, I wonder what could possibly happen. I sure hope this doesn't result in an unreliable narrator to give an artificial sense of suspense, but I will give her a little bit of grace because, I don't know about your school, but for my college, rideshare groups were very common. I have taken several ride shares with other strangers before, and they have always been other college students. I never once considered that I would be with a potential murderer. We had a Facebook group that was literally dedicated to ride shares, so drivers would post that they're driving to this specific city on this specific day, and there are these number of seats available, and then people would just sign up. And that was a really easy way to split gas costs, especially when you are a broke college student. So yes, I was riding with strangers all the time. But I guess to be fair, at this point, cell phones are widely available, and it's not just me and this other stranger, it's always like a group of people. And there was also no active serial killer on campus. So the circumstances are different. I think if I were in her shoes, I would have been a little bit more cautious, but who knows? Because literally, like, I remember the last time I did a ride share with someone in my college town, I fell asleep literally while she was talking to me. And that's probably how my ass would get murdered on page 1. And it was also in the middle of the night. Like, she just kept on talking and talking, and I drifted off to sleep. So maybe this is how a murderer can get me, just by boring me to death. So anyway, the road trip starts where she agrees to meet up with this guy, and already she's getting sus vibes from this guy. Basically, when she watches him fill up the trunk, she observes him doing that in a way where it kind of feels like he's standing in a way where he's blocking his back to her so she can't see like what else is in the trunk. But then she's like, oh, maybe I'm just overthinking it. People sometimes do weird things. She's the girl who sees movies in her mind, and Josh is the guy who fills his trunk in a weird way. End of story. But then Josh turns around after slamming the trunk shut, and she notices something else about him. Something that, to her mind, is stranger than how he loaded the trunk. Josh is dressed the same as he was at the ride board. Exactly the same. Same jeans, same sweatshirt, same nice hair. Yes, they're at a college and everyone dresses like this. It's the unofficial uniform of Oliphant, but Josh wears it uncomfortably, almost like these are not his normal clothes. There is, Charlie realizes, a bit of central casting to his look, as if he's been hired as an extra. Generic college hunk number 2. I find it funny that, like, out of all the possible things that could make you wary about the scenario, what she finds odd is that he's wearing the same clothes like last time, and he doesn't wear it well because he looks awkward in it. Call me a murderer then, as someone who also repeatedly wears outfits and does not look good in them. They get in the car and he says, sorry about the air freshener, it's potent. I can take it down if you want. It's fine, Charlie says, even though she's not entirely sure it is. Normally, she loves the smell of pine, but this is something different. Chemicals pretending to be nature. Wow, she normally loves pine, but this air freshener is different because it's artificial. I wonder what metaphor this could possibly be telling us. A man's air freshener truly tells everything about him. Yet despite her already catching a weird vibe from the beginning of her getting in this car with him, she decides to tell this stranger very early on in their trip about her condition, where she sees movies in her mind, and then he's like, what if we were in a movie right now? Which, by the way, is a great question to ask when someone tells you they hallucinate and experience things that are not actually real. But he incorporates it in their small talk, and he asks her what actors would play them if they were in a movie. She says that young Marlon Brando would play him, and he says, oh, so you think I'm hot? And then she blushes and she's like, I didn't mean it like that. And he says, I like being that Brando. He's kind of fat and crazy now though, right? And then he tells her that the actress that should play her in this movie is Audrey Hepburn. You could look like Audrey if you wanted to. You've got that wide-eyed, fragile, deer tiptoeing into a meadow thing going on that guys love. You might think based on this cringy dialogue that this is just another description of a female character who has no idea that she's hot because she's just so doe-eyed and oblivious. But don't worry, she's still very awkward. Her problem, according to Maddie, was that she spent too much time obsessing over men in the movies to know how to act around them in the real world. Charlie knows there's some truth there. She had no problem getting weak in the knees at the sight of a young Paul Newman, but froze when meeting someone a fraction that handsome in real life. So basically by them fan casting themselves, they are telling the readers, hey, we got 2 hot people in this car. The main girl is hot, but she's supposed to be kind of like weird with her movie condition, and she's also oblivious and doe-eyed. But perhaps the worst part about this whole situation is not the fact that she could be with a killer, it's the fact that she has to endure the most boring ass conversations for the next 6 hours. Again, this whole book is a road trip, which means that we are forced to read the most dry ass dialogue of this possible killer boring her to death. Some of these riveting conversations include, so what's in Youngstown that you're so eager to get back to? My grandmother. Neat. Family visit? I live with her. I gotta say, I didn't expect to find someone to share the drive with me. Not many people are leaving campus, not this time of year, and everyone there seems to own a car. You ever notice that? The parking lots are filled. I'm surprised you don't have a car. I don't drive. Mind if I play some music? Yes. So that's a no on the music? No, on the no, I mean. What I mean is yes, play some music, whatever you want. You're my guest. What do you like? And please don't say Paula Abdul, or worse, Amy Grant. What the fuck are we doing? Why are we reading this for pages and pages and pages? I've only read to you like these few quotes, but you need to imagine this going on for most of the book to understand how boring this guy is, along with the main character overthinking about how much she should talk. Because again, when you're writing a book that's entirely around a road trip, you have to add a bunch of unnecessary internal monologue to stretch it out into a book. Right now, she has no other option but to sit quietly as Josh taps the steering wheel in time to the music. Watching him makes Charlie think back to the driving lessons with her father and how he tossed out questions as she tried to parallel park or enact a 3-point turn. What's the speed limit in a school zone when students are arriving? When driving in fog, should your headlights be at high beam or low beam? Always come to a complete stop at a yield sign. True or false? Charlie knew the answers. She'd all but memorized her driver's ed manual, but with most of her brain concentrating on driving, the correct responses eluded her. She messed up, or got flustered, or tossed out an answer she knew was wrong just because she felt compelled to say something. You know, this is what I just need to do from now on. When I write a book, if I just need to like fluff it up and make the chapters longer, I should just copy and paste the driver's ed manual directly into my manuscript and just call it a day. Even when things get tense later on and the two of them are just trying to sit in silence, he will make a comment being like, oh, it sure is quiet in here. Like, he doesn't really allow her a moment of silence. He's one of those people that cannot stop yapping, which is the worst kinds of people to be stuck with on a road trip. I really hope he kills you fast to get it over with. So we're gonna cut through all the boring small talk and get to some other parts where she starts to get more suspicious about him. So first he says that he's going back home to take care of his dad who had a stroke, and he's going back to Toledo, which is not the city that he told her when they met at the campus rideshare. Because when they met, he had said that he was going to Akron, and he only said that after he learned that she needed to go to Youngstown. She points out, why did you tell me a different city? And he's like, oh, now I remember. I forgot. I told you I'm driving to Akron, which is where my aunt lives. I'm just picking her up and taking her with me to my dad's place in Toledo. So then Charlie's like, oh, I guess I must have been paranoid. It's not like there's an active serial killer on campus or anything, and I have any reason to be suspicious. Carry on then. But then another point early on in the road trip, they stop at a 7-Eleven to pick up drinks. She helps set his wallet on the dashboard after he buys the drinks, but the wallet slips off the dashboard onto her lap, flips open. She sees that his ID is from Pennsylvania instead of Ohio, which is where he claimed to be his hometown. And the ID on the name says Jake, not Josh, which was the name that he gave her. So now she's like, oh my God, I have no idea who this man really is. And I'm like, yeah, bitch, you finally get with the program. So then she starts to see if she can poke more holes in his story. So as they continue the car ride, she remembers that something that he told her when they met is that he is not a student, but works as a custodian on campus. So then she asks him, what was your favorite building to work in? Because everyone has a favorite building on campus. Mine is Madison Hall. To which he squints back at her and acts kind of uncertain, and he says, is that the one with the thing on top? Charlie says, yeah, that's right, Josh says, nodding along. I like that one too. First of all, with the thing on top is the most useless descriptor ever. Even if you're just making shit up to catch someone in a lie, can you at least try a little bit? You can think of movies in your head, but you can't make up a fake building. But anyway, this conversation is where she catches him in a lie, because she says, there is no Madison Hall on campus. I was just messing with you. He rolls with it, he slaps a hand to his cheek, and he smiles and he says, no wonder I was confused. You were so convincing, yet I kept thinking, is she making this up? I've never heard of Madison Hall. And this is where she's like, what the fuck is going on, because there is a Madison Hall right in the center of campus. It is a massive multi-column structure that hosts graduations and concerts and performances. So every student and employee, anyone who's like on campus regularly, would know about it. So this brings me to my next point. You're gonna see throughout the book that the main girl is dumb as a bag of rocks, and we will really get into the meat of it later. But I would argue that the main guy is equally as dumb. My theory from the beginning of this book is that he's not gonna turn out to be the serial killer. I feel like the book is making it too obvious. It's gonna turn out to be another person in the story that the main character never suspected all this time, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So even if he was a killer, or if he's another person with his own agenda, like he was like an investigator or some third party or whatever, either way, he is so fucking bad at his job, because after this, he suggests playing a game of 20 questions. In fact, he insists on it, even when she's clearly not in the mood. I wasn't really playing a game, she says. Seemed like it to me, seeing how you were messing with me just now. I mean, I assume that's why you did it, because we were playing a game. I didn't mean anything by it. Oh, I know. I'm not mad. I get it. We're stuck in this car together, running out of things to say. Why not ask some questions and kid around a bit? So now it's my turn. 20 questions. You ready? I'm really not in the mood right now. Humor me, Josh says, cajoling. Pretty please? She said no, you fucking weirdo. Keep in mind they have had previous interactions where she is silent because she's freaked out, and he'll make comments like, wow, it sure is quiet, or like, oh, how come you're so quiet? She does not want to talk to you. She's like constantly giving you the side eye throughout this trip and freaking out in the corner that you might be a killer, but he is insisting on this 20 questions. So she relents anyway, since he keeps on wanting to do it. In the game, he is thinking of an object, and she has 20 yes or no questions to ask to figure out what it is. Is it bigger than a bread box? Is it a vegetable? Is it a body part? Is it above the neck? All of Charlie's hopefulness disappears because she knows the object Josh is thinking of, a realization that makes it feel as if all the blood has drained from her body. Ice water pours in to replace it, leaving Charlie motionless and numb. You know the answer, don't you? Josh says. Charlie nods, too unnerved to speak. Then say it, smarty pants. Charlie swallows and forces herself to speak. Is it a tooth? It is. Josh smiles, proud of himself. Very good. You solved it in 16 questions. What made you pick that object? I don't know. It just came to me. A stricken look crosses Josh's face. Oh shit. I'm so sorry, Charlie. I wasn't thinking. No wonder you look like you've just seen a ghost. It's because of your friend. That guy pulled out one of her teeth after killing her, didn't he? So this guy is either the dumbest serial killer in the world or the dumbest investigator in the world, or whatever reason why he's here to snatch up Charlie. Either way, he is the most annoying person in this car, especially because she asked him how did he know about the tooth, like the serial killer like pulling out the tooth of his victims, and he says he read about it in the newspaper, but that detail was never reported in the papers. So again, we know that this guy is a liar because he's so bad at doing whatever he's doing that even a dumb bitch like the main girl can put it together. Literally, because the author of this book insists on overwriting every single thought she has for the sake of boosting word count. She runs through all the ways Josh could know about the missing tooth, the least scary being that he's somehow related to Maddie and heard it from her mother. But that makes no sense. If Josh was a family member, it's likely Charlie would have known about him when Maddie was alive. Even if Maddie hadn't mentioned him, and she loved to talk about her family, there's no reason why Josh wouldn't have brought up the connection immediately. Next, Charlie considers the idea that Josh could be a cop, or used to be one. Again, it's unlikely. Any cop familiar with Maddie's case would also know that Charlie had been her roommate. That leaves one last possible reason Josh knows about the tooth. One so scary it makes Charlie simultaneously want to scream, throw up, and leap from the moving car. Josh knows about Maddie's missing tooth because he's the one who took it from her, which would make him worse than anything Charlie had previously thought of. It would make him the campus killer. Oh my god. I am so glad this was all spelled out for me in several paragraphs so I can have the shocker of my life. I mean, what's more suspenseful than reading paragraphs and paragraphs of stream of consciousness writing when the author is telling you how you should feel scared? Then in the next page, we have to suffer through even more of her inner monologue. Charlie remains motionless in the passenger seat, thinking the unthinkable. She might be in a car with the man who killed Maddie, a man who might also plan on killing her, a man who had flat out warned her such a scenario could happen. Charlie stares out the windshield, her gaze fixed on the yellow beams of the headlights chasing away the last bits of fog as she recalls what Josh had told her earlier. He's still out there. He might know who you are. He might try to come for you next. Charlie clings to the second word of that thought, might. She has no proof Josh is the campus killer, only a vague suspicion based on something he said. No, more than something. Several things. All of them adding up to suspicion that's more than vague. Charlie already knows Josh has lied to her and is continuing to do so. The amount of lies he's told since leaving Elephant probably outnumbers Troop 10 to 1, but that doesn't mean he's a killer. It especially doesn't mean he's the man who killed Maddie. This is why the writing very much feels like an early draft to me, because why are you spelling the most obvious things to me, but also writing it in the most redundant way as if you're fighting for your life to hit a word count? She's literally like, oh my gosh, I am in a car with a stranger and he might have killed Maddie. Therefore, maybe he might kill me next, because someone who murders one person oftentimes might be capable of murdering another person. And I am in close proximity to this possible person, but it is all conjecture. I don't really know for certain. So maybe it's possible. Possible. Possibilities are things that often occur in my mind. It is possible he might be this goes on and on and on. You know what I mean? Like, this is how redundant the writing is. And then this man has the audacity to comment afterward, "You're pretty quiet over there, Charlie." Charlie struggles to summon a response. She doesn't want Josh to know she's suspicious or afraid. "I guess I am. You're not mad at me, are you? For the tooth thing? You know I didn't mean anything by it. It wasn't intentional." "I know." "So we're good?" Josh says. One of my biggest pet peeves is when someone outwardly comments on me being quiet. If I'm quiet, that means I don't want to fucking talk to you. Later on, at some point, she's like dwelling over something again. And then he says, "You're quiet again." And I'm like, bro, shut the fuck up. Why do you have to comment every time she goes quiet? Maybe she just doesn't want to talk. This is the worst kind of person to drive with on a 6-hour trip, regardless of the whole serial killer thing. Imagine going on a trip with the most generic dude making small talk, and every time you don't speak for like a minute, he goes, "Hey, why are you so quiet?" Bro, your conversation skills were not riveting to begin with. You force me to play a game, and then when we play a game, you bring up a weird thing that references my best friend's murder. So yeah, maybe she doesn't want to fucking talk to you. Maybe we can just sit in silence or like turn on the radio or something. Eventually, she does see a state trooper car on the road and tries to get his attention by pressing her forehead against the window, using her breath to fog it up and writing a message. Unfortunately, this means we have to read every single detail about this action because apparently overwriting means suspense. "Don't worry, I'm not going to puke or anything. It always passes," she says. The window fogs again, this time in a slightly larger patch. Charlie counts off the seconds until it disappears. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Josh notices the trooper too because he taps the brakes a moment, bringing them below the speed limit. "You sure?" he says. "I'm sure." A fresh bloom of fog spreads onto the window. Charlie counts again. Another 9 seconds. Not a lot of time, but possibly enough. The twin huffs from those last 2 words create a circle of fog twice the size of the previous ones. The countdown begins. 9. Charlie does another quick check of Josh. 8. She returns to the window. 7. She twists her body, blocking Josh's view. 6. She presses the tip of her index finger to the glass and begins to write. 5. The first letter is 3 quick lines in the fog. 4. Another letter, this time 1 long line followed by 3 short bursts. 3. And another, 2 quick slashes. 2. The final letter, a slash and a swoop. 1. The fog vanishes, taking with it the word she had managed to scrawl. Wow, I am so glad that the word help was described in such detail for every single letter while she was counting down. I actually had no idea how to spell that word, so I'm glad that we can visualize all the slashes and swoops. Anyway, her plan doesn't even work because Josh taps the brakes, which makes the state trooper car pass by them. He also is driving 60 miles an hour, which is too fast for her to jump from the car. There's also nothing around them, just a long stretch of road in the middle of the night. So it's not the right time nor the right place. They reach a toll plaza though, which means that he finally slows down so that he can talk to the toll worker, and then she mentally prepares herself. This is the time to finally run. But then the next chapter is her waking up in the car, and it turns out that she was just seeing a movie in her mind. She doesn't know how long she was hallucinating for, which means that she doesn't know if they actually played 20 questions or not. And so she's like, oh my god, like, what is the truth or not? Are you actually an annoying dumbass who can't lie for shit, or did I just gaslight myself? Josh then points out that she has been acting on edge this whole trip, almost like she's scared scared of him, and he asks her why is she so nervous. And this is when she admits that she knows he's lying about his name and that he doesn't work at the school. And so then he admits that she's right. He never worked at a university or went there. He made all of that up. He's actually only been working at the Radio Shack off campus, but his justification is that she wouldn't have agreed to get in the car with him if he told her the truth. As if that somehow absolves the red flags that he had before. Why did you need to lure someone into your car? I didn't lure you, Josh says. Well, I sure as fuck feel lured. I didn't want to be alone. Is that a good enough answer for you? My dad had a stroke and I felt helpless and sad and didn't want to drive to Ohio with nothing but all those bad thoughts to keep me company. So I put on the stupid sweatshirt, went to the ride board, and looked for someone to ride with me. Josh's voice has grown quiet, almost sad. When he looks at Charlie, his expression matches his tone, enough that guilt starts to gain a tiny foothold in Charlie's heart. As someone going through her own share of pain, she even understands why he did it. Grief and sadness are horrible places to dwell in alone. Was it deceitful? Yes. Was it creepy? Hell yes. But it doesn't mean Josh is dangerous. It doesn't mean he wants to do Charlie harm. Girl, you might as well just give him the knife and let him stab you right there, because why are we giving grace to a creepy man? To me, it makes it more obvious that the author of this book is a man, because what kind of woman would be like, oh, he's only creepy, not dangerous? I feel like most women understand that creepy men easily and most often do lead to danger. So I think the grace that she gives is a little bit weird. I would understand it if she was kind of like in freeze mode and she's like afraid to do anything drastic because she doesn't know how he'll react. Like, I understand that because I have had that kind of response before. But for her to like generally give sympathy and be like, oh, he was only creepy, not dangerous. Like, girl, come on. What he does correct her about is his name though. He says his name really is Josh and she can check for herself. So she looks at his wallet again, and this time it is a different license where it's the same picture of him, but the license says that it's from New Jersey and the name is Josh, not Jake. So she's like, wait a minute, what's going on? And he insinuates that she must have seen another movie in her mind, you know, being like a typical crazy bitch that she is, you know? And so then she asks, did they play 20 questions earlier? And he says no. So now she's really confused and questioning what really happened and if her suspicions of this guy are just based on scenarios that she made up in her mind. And now she's at a point where she's like, I need to figure out what the fuck I'm gonna do. Do I continue this road trip or do I try to flee for safety? So she tells them that they need to stop so that she can use the restroom. So they go to a rest stop. She goes to the women's bathroom where she runs into another woman who can tell that she's freaked out, and she asks that person for a ride. But then she gets interrupted by another movie vision where Maddie, her dead friend, walks in and talks like a cartoon heiress, like Vanessa Hudgens in the third Princess Switch movie. Hello, darling, she says. Charlie watches her across the room to the sinks, as clear and present and real as the woman in the stonewashed jeans. Maddie's better dressed, of course. Fuchsia dress, black heels, a strand of pearls double looped around her neck. Maddie stands at the sinks, oblivious to the other women in the room. Gazing at her reflection in the mirror, she puckers her lips before applying crimson lipstick. You look wretched, she says to Charlie, smacking her lips, now red as blood. But my coat looks fab on you. In this vision, Maddie slams Charlie's face against the edge of the sink, and then Charlie jerks back to reality with her body like spasming, and then this freaks out the other woman, and so she thinks Charlie is like drunk or on drugs or something because, you know, this weirdo is acting erratic here. She may be hot like Audrey Hepburn, but she acting a little bit too cuckoo for her taste. So then Charlie says that she needs a ride because the guy that she's with might have killed people, but she doesn't actually know for sure. And then the woman's like, if you ask me, he should be worried about you getting back in the car. Whatever shit you've been drinking, I suggest switching to water. And then the woman gets the fuck out of there. And so now Charlie's all alone, and then she looks in the mirror and she sees like how erratic she looks, and she's like, damn, no wonder that woman fled the bathroom. I look like a crazy person, but wait, maybe I am crazy. And so her conclusion is this: she went into the bathroom knowing she needed to make a decision. It turns out the decision was made for her. If she can't trust herself, then she needs to trust Josh. Here's my decision. You are a dumb bitch. You're risking your life to go to Ohio? We need to get it together, okay? And I know that this story only takes place in the 90s, which is a very convenient way for her to not have access to a cell phone, and that's why she's in danger. But what about all the other dumb decisions she's made? Because you don't need a cell phone to do all of that. And also, the 90s still had phones, didn't they? Like, Girly couldn't have found like a Nokia or something, or like, is there a payphone that's behind the rest stop or whatever? And so afterward, there is a chapter from Josh's perspective where it is confirmed he does have ulterior motives and used her movie hallucinations to gaslight her. So we confirm, as the readers, that they did play 20 questions and he did choose Tooth as his object, which he only did to see her reaction. There also really was a state trooper card that he managed to evade, and he did have a fake driver's license. Actually, he has several fake licenses that he just swaps out. And he switched them in his wallet when he was at the toll plaza earlier so that he could make her think that she was hallucinating later on. It's also revealed that in his trunk are different license plates from different states, rope, a white cloth to use as a gag, a set of handcuffs, and a Swiss Army knife. And he thinks that he doesn't want to use them, but he will if he has to. So then we go to the next chapter with Charlie and Josh meeting outside of the bathroom. They step outside and Charlie sees that it started snowing again, more flurries, as wispy as dust. Josh stops to catch one on his tongue, which is how Charlie knows the snow is real and not just her own personal snow globe a la Citizen Kane. The fact that she's not even capable of discerning the weather on her own tells Charlie she's made the right decision. Yes, she has her suspicions about Josh, but they fade with each step taken toward the parking lot. He's still catching snowflakes, for God's sake. His tongue hanging out like a dog's. That's not something killers do. Kids do that. Nice people do that. So this guy could not possibly be dangerous, even though he's lied to you several times and very badly because he catches snowflakes on his tongue. Right. At this point, if you die, it's not even because of your movie hallucinations incapacitating you. It's just natural selection on account of you being a dumb bitch. Even if he didn't have any bad intentions, why would you even stick around with this guy when he's so annoying and intrusive? Literally, the conversation that happens next is this. So what kind of movie was it, he says. Must have been a doozy if that woman thought you were on the sauce. I don't want to talk about it, she says. Must have been a bad one, Josh says. It was. Be honest now, he says. Was it really that bad, or do you not want to tell me because you still don't trust me? I trust people I know. Then get to know me. A genial smile creeps across Josh's face. Maybe we really should play 20 questions. Charlie doesn't smile back. She's still too unnerved by the fact that she imagined an entire game in 20 questions. I'd rather not, she says. Then let's do one question each, Josh suggests. I ask you something and then you ask me something. You already know enough about me. You haven't told me about your parents. What about them, Charlie says. They died in a car accident, right? Why would you even ask that to a stranger, nonetheless? That's just fucking weird. She doesn't want to talk to you or answer your invasive questions or play stupid games with you, especially when he keeps slipping information that he shouldn't know about, like her parents dying in a car accident. She did not tell him that. So she asks him, how did he know that? And then he says that he just assumed it. And she's like, how did you assume that? And he says, because you mentioned that you live with your grandmother, which tells me that your parents are no longer alive. You also said you don't drive, which I assumed was a choice and not because you're physically incapable of it. So putting all that together, I came to the conclusion that you don't drive because your parents were killed in a car accident. Again, if you were a normal person and not a badly written character, you would not be trying to play Sherlock Holmes with the bits of information that this random girl mentioned to you throughout the day. Even if you did suspect that someone's parents are dead, you would at least say something like, hey, are you close to your parents? Or like, hey, like what happened to your parents? You know, like instead of leading straight off the bat, hey, your parents died in a car accident, right? Josh then reveals through a long monologue that nobody asked for that his mom left when he was 8. It happened on Halloween when he was dressed up as Batman and he thought Batman was the coolest guy ever because whenever he saw his dad drinking and his mom get a disapproving look in her eyes, he could tell that a fight would break out, and then he would go grab a Batman comic, crawl under the covers, and pretend he was inside that comic book, and that was his way of escaping. And then on Halloween, after he went trick-or-treating and he came home and his mom was gone, she had left with only a note that said a single message: I'm sorry. And then he goes on and on about how hard it was because his mom chose to leave, which is like different from death, because it's like, it's one thing if your parents died from an accident, but it's another thing if your parent chose to leave you and abandon your life. And that's why she put all her love and attention into making that Batman costume for him for Halloween, because she knew it would be the last thing she would ever do for him. Blah, blah, blah. I don't give a fuck. Pop the trunk open right now and just beat me with a bat so I don't have to listen to another second of this sob story. After that, they get in the car and drive for a while. Charlie gets moody from her internal monologue, and then she sighs out loud, which makes him ask, are you getting carsick again? And then this gags her because she never told Josh she felt carsick except for when she was pretending to be when she was writing a message on the window for the state trooper, but she thought that was just a movie. But because he asked that, she's like, wait a minute, was that a movie or not, or was it real? So then we spend several paragraphs of more internal monologue where she's replaying what happened and comes to the conclusion that they did play 20 questions and it wasn't in her mind. Basically everything that you knew like 5 chapters ago, the main character must explain to you in excruciating detail, which really makes such a riveting story to read. She confirms this even more when she breathes on the window and sees the word help written in the fog earlier. So again, she finds out she actually did write it. I don't know why she didn't think to do that sooner to confirm, but whatever. So as she is stewing in these newfound revelations, Josh says, you're quiet again. And I'm like, bro, shut the fuck up. God forbid we sit in silence for 5 fucking minutes. So then Josh wants to stop at a diner to get food. I don't know why, because any person with 2 brain cells can go get help by talking to a worker or asking to make a phone call, but maybe he's feeling confident on account of her being a dumb bitch. So they go to the diner where she plans to use a payphone outside the diner once she can get away from Josh. The problem is it is right on the other side of the glass door in full view of Josh from the table that they're seated in. So she says, hey, I'm gonna call my boyfriend real quick. Then we experience such detailed writing about her pressing every single number on the payphone. I feel like the PR answer for why it must be broken down in every single detail for every single number that she dials is to add suspense, but I know the real detail is we gotta hit that word count. She lifts the receiver from its cradle, bringing the steady hum of a dial tone to her ears. Then she pauses, unsure what to do next. She's never called 911 on a payphone before. Does she need to insert coins? Does she press 0 for the operator? Or does she just dial 911 and hope someone will answer? With the dial tone still buzzing insistently, she opts for the latter. She presses 9. She presses 1. She presses 1 a second time, shooting a nervous glance at the window. And then even though a 911 dispatcher answers the call, Charlie hangs up because she sees Josh emerging around the side of the building, and he's like, oh, what's wrong? And she's like, oh, I dialed the wrong number. And he's like, you don't know your boyfriend's number? And she's like, oh, my finger slipped. And he says, you're not gonna try again? And she says, I'm all out of change. And then he offers to give her his own change and is like, go on and call him. Don't mind me. I'm just outside here for fresh air. Nothing suspicious at all. So she's like, oh my God, now I have to call Robbie for real, because if I dial 911, Josh is gonna hear every word I say and might kill me before the police arrive. So she calls Robbie, and then he's asking how it's going, and she says, actually, things took a detour. And this sets off alarm bells for Robbie, because before she went on this trip, they told each other that they can have code words in case something goes wrong. And so she would say things took a detour. So that was like the big red flag that she was like essentially hailing up. And so he's like, where are you? Like, what's going on? And she's, you know, trying to play it cool. And she's like, oh, we're at the cutest diner. It's at the Skyline Grill, blah, blah, blah. And so she gives the necessary information that hopefully Robbie will write down and try to inform the police and try to do something about it. And after she hangs up, Josh, who is apparently the nosiest bitch in the world, says, you all done? She nods and he says, good, it's cold out here. Josh flashes her that perfect smile. Don't want you to catch your death. But again, this is the worst killer or investigator or whatever he is trying to do. I also feel like at this point, I don't care if it's awkward, because, you know, it's not like this guy has any sense of propriety. I'm gonna ask him to back the fuck up so I can talk to my boyfriend in privacy and then secretly call the police. So then we get a short chapter from Robbie's perspective to show that he called 911 to make a report, and then he also gets in his car to drive to the diner himself. Now, with him putting in all those miles to go meet up with her, it sure would have been convenient for him to just drive her in the first place, but I guess that would have made too much sense, and we're not here for a story that makes makes sense. So now in the next chapter, Charlie and Josh go back to the diner. He tells her that he knows she's still scared of him because she's acting on edge and was speaking to her boyfriend in code, because he points out that saying things took a detour was a very strange thing to say and that it must have been code. I don't know if it was really that strange to say considering the rest of the dialogue is so stilted, but okay. So then he's like, listen, we don't have to do this anymore. You can stay here if you want. I'll get in the car and drive off and you can find another way to get home. And then this makes Charlie suspicious because she's like, what is this guy planning? Like all of a sudden he's just gonna let me go. So then she goes back and forth on it until the waitress, who's named Marge, comes back and accidentally spills tea on Charlie's coat. And this was a purposeful accident on Marge's part, because then when Charlie goes to the bathroom to clean it up, Marge goes after her and Marge is like, listen, I know I should mind my own business, but is everything okay? I saw you out there with your friend and you seemed a little distressed. Is he treating you okay? So as we can see, a kind stranger was able to sense that the vibes were off and is trying to assist her, right? So this is the perfect moment for Charlie to literally tell this woman what is going on, ask to use the diner's phone, and call the police. You would think that would be the perfect time to do so, but instead, she tells Marge everything's fine, and then she looks in the mirror and thinks, staring at the ghost of who she had once been, Charlie assures herself she did the right thing by not telling Marge the truth about Josh. It's better this way. Now only one of them is in danger. She also knows it's a lie, just like thinking that no one will believe her if she tried to get help, or that Josh would charm and fib his way out of it, or that he has no intention of leaving without her, despite flat out stating he does. They're all lies. One's different from what Josh has been feeding her all night, but lies nonetheless. Meager excuses to hide the truth. That part of her doesn't want to get away from Josh. Not just yet. Charlie had left home with only a vague understanding about all the dangers young women face. Youngstown wasn't Mayberry. Bad things happened there all the time. Date rape and abuse and 100 tiny threats directed at women, but Charlie hadn't given them much thought, not even after her high school health teacher did a lesson on sexual assault, or on the day she left for Oliphant and Nana Norma gave her that tiny pink bottle of pepper spray, or during the self-defense class every female Oliphant student had to take the week of orientation. It took Maddie being killed for her to understand the brutal truth that there are men out there who won't hesitate to hurt women. Another look in the mirror confirms it. She is changing. Her face has gained some color. A pink flush, brighter than the bathroom walls, spreads across her cheeks, her forehead, the bridge of her nose. Like her heart, her eyes have also hardened. Where once she had seen only despair, Charlie now sees a flicker of fire. She feels bold, fearless, dangerous. Wrapped in Maddie's red coat, she feels almost possessed by all the tough women she's admired in movies. Stanwyck in Double Indemnity, Hayworth in The Lady from Shanghai, Crawford in, well, everything. The kind of women men don't know if they want to kiss or kill. Women who claw and scrape through life because they have to. Now it's Charlie's turn. She's no longer the scared, self-loathing girl she was when she left campus. She's something else. A fucking femme fatale. She's going to leave this bathroom, then the diner, and get back into the car with Josh. She doesn't know how and doesn't know when, but she's going to make him pay for what he's done, and she intends to enjoy it. So this dumb bitch decides to not call the police, not call for help, not even go home on her own. She decides to stay with this creepy man because feminism? We spent this whole book gaslighting ourselves, and now we're gonna be in our girl boss era. Something that we never hinted or indicated being capable of otherwise. She has literally spent the entire book being scared shitless, and now all of a sudden there's this forced character development where she's all of a sudden being a girl boss pussy queen. This plan doesn't even make sense. If you wanted to make sure this guy doesn't harm other people, you would have him arrested. The police would have found the sketchy shit that was in his trunk or looked through his car to find multiple licenses. How are you, a random ass bitch with no survival skills, gonna take him down? She literally could have just asked Marge to call the police and then buy time with Josh at the diner. You thought you chose the option where only one person gets harmed instead of two? Have you considered that there was an option where nobody gets harmed if you literally just choose the easiest option? version. Like, girl, come on. She keeps on switching between, oh my god, I'm so scared, I want to escape, and then every time there's an opportunity to escape, she's like, never mind. How are you suddenly worried about putting the waitress in danger, but you weren't worried when you were talking to the other girl in the bathroom? The realization consuming Charlie is that Josh needs to be stopped, and she's the one who must do it. She can't rely on the hopeful notion that Robbie called the police and that any second now a cop will show up and arrest Josh, nor can she enlist kind-hearted Marge for help. The waitress might be quick with a cup of scalding hot tea, but that means nothing when Josh has a knife within reach. Earlier, Charlie had toyed with the idea that fate is what led her into Josh's car. She assumed it was punishment for how she had treated Maddie, but now Charlie suspects that if fate did have a hand in creating the situation, it's for an entirely different purpose. Not punishment, redemption. Right now, Charlie has a chance to clear her conscience. The guilt that's consumed her for 2 months could be gone in an instant. Her slate thoroughly wiped clean. All she needs to do is make sure Josh doesn't ride off alone. She owes it to herself and to Maddie and to Maddie's family and to the other women Josh has killed and to those he might kill in the future if she lets him get away. But she's not going to let that happen. She's going to leave this bathroom, then the diner, and get back into the car with Josh. It's not smart, it's not careful, it's probably not even brave. Right now, it doesn't really matter. It's what Charlie feels she must do. Is this writing, or is this just an overly long, redundant explanation desperately trying to explain to the audience why the main character is a dumb bitch? So now with like this forced femme fatale bullshit that we're into, she goes back to the table and tells Josh that actually she wants to go with him to Ohio. She's gonna commit to this road trip. She even tells him, for some reason, that her boyfriend has called the cops, so they should leave soon. It's a bluff. She doesn't actually know if Robbie has called the cops or not, but you know, even when Josh is like, oh, are you sure? That's why she brings up that the cops are coming, because she's like, no, you and me, we're gonna do this shit. And she calls him Jake, revealing that she knows her actual name. So she's just poking the bear at this point. Before they can leave, a cop car does arrive. So then Josh grabs the steak knife on the table while the cop tells Marge that he's here because of a call. Charlie, meanwhile, makes us go through another overly long monologue where we must know every single thought that she has. She gives the scene another all-encompassing glance, skipping from Officer Tom's gun to Josh's knife to Marge and then back to the cop, trying to gauge the distance between all of them. She wonders if she should yell to Officer Tom that Josh is a killer. She wonders if he'd be able to draw his weapon before Josh jammed the steak knife into Marge's stomach. She wonders if Officer Tom would then open fire on Josh. Charlie pictures the immediate aftermath, her cowering in the booth, her hands over her ears as Josh lies dead on the table and Marge bleeds on the floor and smoke still trickles from the barrel of Officer Tom's gun. She wonders if this, right now, is all just a movie in her mind. It doesn't matter that Josh can see the cop and Marge can see him and that both spoke to him. All of that could also be part of the movie, a fever dream built out of hope and denial and wishful thinking. It wouldn't surprise her if it was. She's experienced them enough to know the drill. They emerge when she's stressed and scared and needs to be shielded from the harshness of reality, which describes her current mood in a nutshell. Again, you really just gotta appreciate how the author insists on telling us every single thing that she wonders about, because what is the easiest way to increase our word count beyond showing one scene? If we make the main character wonder about multiple scenes. It's like when you're a writer trying to come up with all the things that should happen in a story and you decide to just list out all of these options via stream of consciousness. Marge joins Officer Tom. Thanks for checking in on us, Tom, but we're fine. Isn't that right, folks? She turns to Charlie and Josh, giving them an exaggerated wink. We're fine, Josh says. Yes, fine, Charlie says, a weak echo. She looks to Josh. In fact, we were just leaving, weren't we? Josh, surprised, takes a beat before replying. Yes, we were. He slides out of the booth. Charlie does the same and follows him to the door, knowing that she's about to lose her last chance at rescue. It's a risk she needs to take. Does she, though? Does she really need to take that risk? A couple of years ago, in one of her elective psych classes, she had read about kidnapped victims who stayed with their captors long after they could have escaped. Stockholm Syndrome, the mind warping over time until the abducted came to sympathize with those who took them. At the time, Charlie judged those young women, and they were all young women. Weak, vulnerable, victimized women who didn't have the good sense to flee at the first opportunity. I'd never let that happen to me, she told Maddie, but now she understands. Those women didn't stay because they were weak. They stayed because they were scared. scared because they feared what would happen to them if their escape plan failed, that it would be worse than their current situation and it could always get worse. In this case, worse means Josh doing something rash and hurting not just her, but also Marge and Officer Tom in the process. And this has nothing to do with them. This is between her and Josh. Because of that, it's best to get out the diner and back in the car, where she's the only one in danger. Sometimes you can't simultaneously be smart, brave, and careful. Sometimes you need to choose one. By following Josh to the door, Charlie's choosing bravery. The levels of mental gymnastics that the writing is expecting us to perform to believe that any of this shit makes sense. Girl, you did not choose bravery. You chose to be a dumb bitch. The thing is, I would understand if she didn't want the police involved because she doesn't trust them to properly do their job. Like, maybe we could have had in the story, like, established that there has been multiple instances where the cops have let the killers walk free and kill their next victim. Or maybe it could establish that Josh is good friends with the cops and so they're buddy-buddy and so he wouldn't actually get in trouble. Maybe Josh told her he had a gun and will shoot everybody in the diner if he hears police sirens in the distance. There's literally so many other better explanations for her to be like, this is the only thing I can do. Like, the only possible thing I can do is put myself in harm's way. Instead, you're agreeing to go back to your car alone with this guy because you didn't want him to hurt a police officer. Girl, fuck the police. Since when are we concerned about their safety now? We gotta put ourselves in danger because God forbid a police officer who has weapons and resources and backup and a job that's literally about arresting criminals might get hurt. What makes you think you have this shit in the bag? You were barely able to spell a 4-letter word on the window. How much do you know? Josh says after they've traveled a mile without another car or building in sight. Everything, Charlie says. Josh nods, unsurprised. I figured as much. Why'd you get back in the car? Because I had to. It really is that simple. Charlie couldn't risk letting Josh do something to Marge or Officer Tom, and she certainly couldn't let him leave on his own, where he could do the same things he did to Maddie to someone else. So now she's here, sitting next to a killer. Call it fate, call it karma, whatever it is, she understands she needs to be the one to stop Josh. It's her duty and hers alone. Girl, we get it. You're a dumb bitch. You don't have to explain it to us over and over. You have told us this multiple times on multiple pages, and you still sound fucking stupid every single time. Just because you explained it more than once doesn't mean it gets any less stupid from here. So at this point, they have confirmed his real name is Jake, and they played 20 questions, and he made her think she was crazy because he needed to keep her in the car instead of running away. So she asked him, is there anything you told me tonight that is true? And he says the story about his mom. And she says, why did you tell me? And he says, because I like talking to you. That wasn't a lie either. Brother, ugh. What I refuse to do is buy into the propaganda that a character is redeemable and sympathetic just because his mommy left him. We have a 50% divorce rate in America. Get the fuck in line with everybody else. So while we're already getting vulnerable, Charlie admits to Josh that she almost killed herself because she wanted the guilt to go away. So that's why she accepted a ride from a stranger. And then he tells her, I'm glad that didn't happen. And I'm sorry we didn't get to meet under different circumstances. I think I would have liked that. And I'm reading this and going, what is this, The Notebook? What happened to kidnapping this bitch? And what happened to this bitch trying to kill you? Charlie says, so what now? He says, we drive, but not to Ohio. No, Charlie, I'm afraid not. What's going to happen when the driving stops? I think you already know the answer. Charlie's fingers curl around the knife in her pocket. Maybe you should stop driving now, she says. Josh gives her a look. You sure you want that? No, Charlie says, but I've gone through a lot of things I didn't want, like what happened to your parents. Yes, and Maddie. Fortunately for us, this riveting conversation gets interrupted by a deer leaping into the road. They swerve away and nearly crash. Josh asks her if she's okay, and she says, I think so. But then she's like, wait, if Josh plans on killing me, what does he care if I'm okay? But then also, wait, we just stopped the car. Now's my chance. He decides to get out of the car to check the front, and she's like, oh my God, like, now I can grab the steak knife. I have it hid in my pocket. The engine's still running. I can slip behind the wheel and stomp on the pedal and run him over. She gets halfway behind the wheel before Josh sees what she's doing, and he jumps back into the car and he's like, listen, Charlie, I don't want to hurt you, okay? But I can. So keep those hands where I can see them. He then takes out handcuffs and throws it to her and tells her to put it on. And she doesn't want to. And he says, please don't make me get rough. You don't want that and I don't want that. So I'm going to count to 3 because it's off author really loves having countdowns to give the illusion of suspense. And so he starts to count 1, 2, 3. We get micro little gestures in between the countdown. You know how this writing works. So he starts to count. Even when he's done, she still doesn't move. And so then he lunges over. She pulls the knife from her coat and stabs Josh in the stomach. Fucking finally. We then cut to the next chapter where she envisions a movie where they're just driving normally. And Josh is like, we can keep going all the way to Ohio if that's what you want. And Charlie says, or we could go to a movie. And Josh chuckles and he's like, I wouldn't mind that. Not one bit. So it's kind of like this alternate universe that they could have had if they met under different circumstances or whatever. Because, you know, naturally when you stab someone who tried to kidnap you as a woman, you must imagine the two of you together in a romantic scenario. Even girl boss pussy queens must find their kidnapper hot at the end of the day. We then go back to reality where Josh is bleeding and Charlie runs away. We see his perspective where he's thinking he wasn't lying when he said he liked talking to her. He can't remember the last time he enjoyed being in someone's company. People, generally speaking, suck. It's why he does what he does. Most human beings can't stop being selfish, greedy, piggish assholes, and it's his job to make sure they pay for that. But Charlie's different, so weird and wounded, and as he now knows, secretly fierce. It made him lower his guard. He told her things he'd never told anyone else, ever. Wow, don't you love it when you are so enamored by someone who's not like other girls, literally because she stabs you in the stomach? Truly a modern day romance. Colleen Hoover is taking notes somewhere in the corner. Josh grabs his first aid kit, pours alcohol on his wound, and starts to stitch it up, which means we ain't gonna see the last of him just yet. Meanwhile, Charlie runs to the diner. It is closed, but she finds Marge, the waitress, and tells her she stabbed Josh and they should call the police. However, Marge instead puts a rag over Charlie's mouth and chloroforms her. Charlie then wakes up in the back room of the diner, tied up, and Marge is there. And then they hear someone pulling up to the diner and knocking on the door and trying to get in, and she hears from his voice that it's Robbie. And then Marge says, if you make one sound, I will shoot him. So then Marge goes out to tell Robbie that the diner's closed. He asks her a bunch of questions about if she's seen this girl, and then she's like, oh yeah, I saw this girl, but she's long gone now. She left with some guy. Robbie leaves. Marge goes back to Charlie, chloroforms her again, makes her go inside a car, and they drive off. But then Robbie, turns out, was actually waiting for them to leave, and he follows them in his car because he could tell that there were holes in Marge's story. And so as he's driving to follow them, Josh also arrives at a diner, sees that no one is there, but he sees Robbie's car with a university sticker on the bumper is like driving off in the distance. So then he decides to follow Robbie. So we got people following each other on the road. Marge takes Charlie to a rundown lodge that's no longer operating. It's just the two of them. And then Marge takes off her wig and it turns out she's bald. The tea is she has stage 4 cancer, and apparently she has weeks left, maybe even 2 months. And that's why she's been concocting this whole plan, because she knows she can get away with it. Turns out that she is Maddie's grandma, and when Maddie died, she swore she would find the person who killed her. So she hired Josh to pick up Charlie at that university, bring her to Marge to the diner for $20,000 so that she can interrogate Charlie and force her to remember the details about the night Maddie was murdered. Because before, when Charlie was telling the police about when the last time she had seen Maddie, she mentioned that she had seen a guy, but she doesn't remember what he looks like because of her movie hallucinations. He might as well just be like an amalgamation of different characters. But Marge is like, no, you know something. You saw him for yourself. That information is stored somewhere in your brain, and I'm gonna make you remember. She takes out pliers and threatens to rip out a tooth from Charlie's mouth if she does not provide the answers. And so Charlie obviously is freaking the fuck out and can't remember anything for shit. And so Marge is like ready to just yank the tooth out of there. Meanwhile, I'm confused about how pulling out Charlie's teeth is supposed to get her to remember stuff. If anything, I feel like that would make you less likely to remember important information or like answer an interrogation because you're too busy freaking the fuck out that your tooth is about to get pulled out. It's not like we get revelations when we go to the dentist. I'm not getting my wisdom teeth removed and being like, oh, I remember a repressed memory now. I know health insurance is a big problem in America, but surely we don't have to resort to this for dental coverage. Fortunately, Charlie's teeth are intact because they are interrupted by the sound of a door opening. Marge runs away and Josh comes in to rescue Charlie. Charlie tells him she's sorry for what she did to him. I don't know why the fuck she would be sorry. I would be glad to stab him. But he replies that he's the one that should be sorry, and I'm begging Marge to come back to end my misery. Unfortunately, finally she does appear again with a gun and shoots Josh in the shoulder. And this kind of gags Marge because she didn't expect to do that. She has a lantern in her other hand and she drops it because she's like, oh my God, like, damn, this cancer is really kicking in. I didn't expect to be like killing somebody. The lantern drops, fire spreads around in this rundown building. Charlie runs away, and then we get 3 chapters back to back where she gets chased down by Marge with a gun, except it turns out in every single chapter that it was a movie in her mind. I'm not gonna read the quote aloud to you because, you know, I don't want to bog you down, but imagine you're reading one chapter, she's running away, oh my God, Marge is catching up to her. Just kidding, it was a movie. Read the next chapter, she's running away again, oh my God, she's so afraid of Marge. Just kidding, it was another movie. And then the 3rd chapter, she's still fucking running. The last movie though, in that 3rd fake scenario that we're reading, does involve her saying goodbye to Maddie, because this is when Maddie shows up, they have a conversation, they get closure. This is like the big goodbye that she finally says to her dead friend that she's felt guilty over. After that big closure moment, Charlie thinks about how the movies in her mind are now over, possibly for good. Because as we all know, that's how mental illness works. It just magically disappears once we get closure. You have to like hallucinate 3 times in a row in order to get to that part. So what is actually happening in reality? Well, there's still a fire going around and it's being described like this. Further cementing her theory are dark plumes of smoke drifting toward her from around a corner of the building. With them are the snap, crackle, and pop of something burning. All right? Pack it up, Rice Krispies. This is why this reads like an early draft to me, because why are we explaining things this way? So Charlie runs into Marge again, but then Robbie also appears behind Marge and has a tire iron and hits Marge with it. Marge spins around and shoots Robbie. They both fall down. Charlie grabs a gun, and then Marge tells her to pull the trigger and put her out of her misery, which is ironically the same thing I'm thinking about while reading this book. But then Charlie's like, no, Maddie wouldn't want that. And then she tosses the pistol into the pool that's outside. She and Robbie then escape from the fire and they go to Robbie's car. Charlie tells him that they need to go back for Josh because he got shot. And Robbie's like, so was I. And also, we don't got time for this shit. So then she guides Robbie to the passenger seat because he's wounded, and she takes over the driver's seat. And this is the first time she's going to drive since the day before her parents were killed. So we're making big steps here in this character arc. They drive off somewhere, but she doesn't know where they are, so she puts the car in park and reaches for the glove compartment to look for a map. A jewelry box tumbles out and she's like, oh my God, Robbie was going to propose. But then Robbie's like, oh wait, but it's too late because Charlie opens the box and instead of a ring, 3 teeth fall out. And that's when she realizes Robbie is the serial killer. This is something I predicted way earlier in the book, but for the sake of suspense, we must act shocked. What I'm wondering is, wouldn't it have been funny if she opened the compartment and instead of a jewelry box of teeth, it was a fedora? It still would have implicated Robbie, but it would have been equally as horrifying. But also, what if Robbie was the tooth fairy and this was all just a misunderstanding? You know, like, can't a man just carry around 3 teeth in his glove compartment? But okay, we've established Robbie is a serial killer. The question is, why? Charlie wails, why Maddie? Because she was too brash, Robbie says, spitting out the last word. Always loud, always demanding attention. Is that why you killed the others too? Because they were too loud, too brash? No, because they thought they were special. They thought they deserved the attention they were constantly begging for. And they're not special, Charlie. I've been waiting a year for you to figure it out. Most people are stupid and useless and pathetic, and those deluded enough to think they aren't deserve whatever punishment they get. Charlie recoils against the driver's side door, terrified. You're sick. No, Robbie says. I truly am special, as are you. Remember the night we met in the library? I thought I was going to kill you that night, sitting with you at the library, then the diner, then walking you home. The whole time I kept thinking about what it was going to feel like to kill you. Why didn't you? Because there was something about you I was drawn to. You were so innocent? Robbie shakes his head. Clueless. You watch your movies and you think that makes you smart, like you know the way the world works, but all it's done is warp your brain. You have no idea what the world is like. Let me get it straight. This is supposed to be some scary ass serial killer, and the motivation that he's been doing all that, killing all these women and like taking their teeth, is because he hates that they think they're special. And he spared Charlie because he was attracted to her on account of her being a dumb bitch. All right, sure. Fortunately, Charlie has the advantage of being in the driver's seat of the car and Robbie being wounded. So she slams on the gas pedal and drives as fast as she can. Robbie freaks out and tries to get her to stop, and then she has a girl boss moment. Now she wants to live, really live, the way Maddie had lived, the way she had tried to get Charlie to do. Maddie saw what Charlie couldn't, that she had spent the past 4 years being an audience member to her own sad existence. Movies are my life, she had told Josh. It should have been the other way around. Charlie should have been able to say, my life is like the movies. Pause for cringe. All right, and now that she realizes it, she's terrified Robbie is going to take away her chance to do something about it. With her fists around the steering wheel and the car humming under her, Charlie stares at the bridge over the ravine. In that moment, she understands she's in charge of her own destiny. She's Ellen Ripley. She's Laurie Strode. She's Clarice Starling. She's Thelma and Louise, kicking up dirt in a final fuck you as they choose freedom over life. Their choice, no one else's. Oh my God. It's almost like by Charlie being in the driver's seat of the car, it's a metaphor for how she's finally in the driver's seat of her own life. Now it's her choice. And as we know, having choices means feminism. So she slams the gas pedal and drives off the bridge. They hit the water and start sinking. And as the water gushes into the car from below and goes up to their laps, Robbie says, "Is this what you wanted? To kill us both?" "No," Charlie says, "just you." She unhooks her seatbelt, not worried about getting out of the car. She knows what to do. Wait until it fills completely with water, which alters the pressure against the side of the car, then open the door and swim out. She knows because she saw it in a movie. Oh my God. It's almost like she's been watching movies all her life and now it's her superpower. It's like all this time when you thought you were so weird and strange for liking movies, a hobby that nobody else has in this world, it was actually your specialty all along. We are now continuing the momentum of Girlboss Pussy Queen badassness as Robbie hits her in the face with his elbow and shoves her head underwater, and she goes still, and he thinks he won until he realizes that she took Josh's handcuffs and had cuffed him to the steering wheel. And that is how she leaves Robbie trapped in the car that's sinking and is able to escape out of the car and save herself and be the badass pussy queen she was meant to be. Hashtag feminism. And now we get to the ending where we cut to her in the hospital where she looks at herself admiringly with newfound confidence. Charlie's injuries were minor. Some scrapes, bruises, and a broken nose from when Robbie elbowed her in the face. Now a fat strip of medical tape sits across the bridge of it. When Charlie first saw it in the mirror, she couldn't help but say, to no one in particular, Chinatown. Roman Polanski, 1974, starring Jack Nicholson and Faye Dunaway. The nurse who had done the taping didn't get the reference. You need to see it, Charlie told her. It's a classic. If I were the nurse, actually, let me not say. I would not be an ethical nurse, is what I'm trying to say. See, the problem with someone saving their life thanks to movie references is that it enables them to be more annoying about it. We also find out that Marge is also alive, despite her wishes earlier, and Charlie had told the police that they went to the lodge just to reminisce and that the fire was simply an accident, and that Marge had not shot anyone, let alone 2 people. Basically, she's covering up for Marge, and so she visits Marge, who tells her that she's sorry, and Charlie says, "I'm not here for an apology. I'm here to say that we're square." And she gives Marge Robbie's tooth, which I will admit is a badass move on her part. We still don't really understand why he would take a tooth from every victim in the first place, but you know, it's a full circle moment and she was able to like do the same thing to him. She then visits Josh in another hospital room, or as we'll call him from now on, his real name, Jake, which, you know, is such a far departure from such a unique special name like Josh. "You stabbed me," he says. "You kidnapped me. I also tried to save you." Charlie gives a nod of thanks. "You did." Josh tries to sit up, groaning with effort. Most of his body has been wrapped in bandages. Some are for the stab wound, others are for the gunshot wound, and still others might be from when Charlie accidentally rear-ended the Cadillac while he was inside. "The mummy," she says. 1932, Boris Karloff. Girl, you need to cut it out. It's getting too much. I know this was your shtick in the beginning of the story. It's one thing to like movies, but you can't have your personality to just be listing a movie and the actors in it. Like, you gotta just get a Letterbox account or something, okay? I can sense that we are at the end of the story, and if you slow it down with another film reference, I too will be hospitalized. So then she thanks Jake for saving her, and he gives her his keys to take his car. You need to get to Ohio somehow. Besides, you're only borrowing it. Go home, spend some time with your grandmother, bring it back to me. I'll probably still be here. And when you do, maybe we can, I don't know, go see a movie or something. Charlie curls her fingers around the keys, a sign she's considering it, not just borrowing Josh's car, but all of it. For one, she feels indebted to him. He came to her rescue, in spite of what she had done to him. That needs to be acknowledged and appreciated. What do you mean you have to be indebted to him? He literally tried to kidnap you because there was $20,000 on your head. Him rescuing you was just trying to undo the situation that he put you in the first place. The bedrock truth is that surviving the night has left Charlie feeling lonelier than ever. Maddie's gone, Robbie too. Now, more than ever, Charlie's in need of a new friend. Maybe, she says, as long as I get to pick the movie. First of all, ew. Second of all, so you admit that you're gonna date your own kidnapper because you literally have nobody else in your life. Like, you just straight up said that, right? Got him. We're just saying the quiet part out loud now. And so the book ends with a moral to the story told through internal monologue that sounds like the voiceover of a Disney Channel original movie. That's the tricky thing about movies. They can be wonderful and beautiful and amazing, but they're not like life, which is wonderful, beautiful, and amazing in a different way. Not to mention messy and complicated and sad and scary and joyful and frustrating and very often boring. Charlie knows the night she's just had is the exception rather than the rule. So then the final scene is the epilogue 6 years later, where there is a movie adaptation of what Charlie has experienced. Charlie now works as an archivist for the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, which is her dream job. Josh has also left the business of being a bounty hunter and now works as a chauffeur driver for Hollywood stars. You would think, oh, maybe this cheesy conclusion and this forced romance plot was actually a product of the movie adaptation, not what truly happened, where she literally ends up with a guy hired to bring her to a lady who would torture her. But unfortunately, no. That part of the movie, as improbable as it may seem, is true. Josh did let her borrow his car. Charlie drove it straight to Ohio and Nana Norma. When she returned the car 2 weeks later, Josh did indeed ask her if she'd like to go to the movies. Her answer was simple: I never say no to a movie. They went. Josh paid for the tickets. They went the next night. Charlie returned the favor. By their third movie, Josh had learned that she preferred to sit in the middle of the 6th row. By the 4th, Charlie had learned that Josh liked to put raisinets in his popcorn. By their 5th, she finally learned to start calling him Jake. That was 6 years ago. Perhaps the biggest red flag of all about this Jake guy is that he likes to put raisinets in his popcorn. Maybe that is the time when she should have been like, wait, maybe I should evaluate my dating choices of men. Maybe I shouldn't be romanticizing this shit, and this is fucking weird. But as we now know, they have been together for six beautiful, beautiful, touching years of this beautiful romantic story, even though I thought we were reading a thriller, but apparently not. When Jake picks her up from the movie, because, you know, he's a driver now for celebrities, he says, "How was the movie?" And she says, "Not bad. Not great, but certainly not terrible. It was a typical movie, but real life?" Charlie exhales a sigh of contentment as she reaches for her husband's hand. Real life is so much better. The end. Literally, that was like the last line of the book. I mean, sure, I guess. Gas money is expensive, okay, in this economy. So I guess it's nice that you got a husband who drives you around. Imagine explaining to friends how you guys met though. Like, they could start a YouTube channel and be like, I fell in love with a guy who I thought was a serial killer. Not clickbait. How I met my husband. I tried to kill him after he kidnapped me. So yeah, I guess that is like their meet cute and wonderful, beautiful romance story. I hope that you have also enjoyed this recap slash roast slash rant of this book. I don't know what the next book I will roast will be, but I'm sure it will be equally as wild of a ride. So until then, goodbye.